One moment on national television was never supposed to air. The editors missed it. The network didn't catch it. But millions of families saw something that broke the illusion of live comedy forever. The Smothers brothers fought censorship, fought the establishment, and paid the ultimate price. Yet, one blooper wasn't funny at all. It exposed a truth so dangerous that careers ended the next morning. Look again at that footage. What you missed will change everything you thought you knew about television's most rebellious show. Have you ever spotted something the censors didn't? The Smothers Brothers comedy hour wasn't just a variety show. It was a war zone. Tommy and Dick Smothers used comedy to attack the Vietnam War, racism, and political hypocrisy. Network executives hated them. President Nixon's administration monitored them. Every episode faced dozens of cuts. But the blooper in question wasn't political at all. It was personal. Think about the last time you watched a live broadcast and felt something was off. A glance that lasted too long. A pause that felt like fear. That's what happened here. And almost everyone missed it. Behind the scenes, pressure was crushing. The brothers received constant threats of cancellation. Affiliates called CBS furious after every episode. Advertisers pulled out. Yet the show kept winning ratings. That's what terrified the network most. A comedy program that couldn't be controlled. The cast walked on eggshells, never knowing which joke would be their last. Scripts were rewritten minutes before air. Rehearsals ran long because the censors demanded endless changes. The blooper happened during a sketch that had already been edited 5 times. 5 separate rounds of cuts. And still, the network wasn't satisfied. The director yelled, "Cut," in frustration. But the cameras kept rolling. Those extra seconds captured something no one was supposed to see. Not a joke, not a mistake, something real, something dangerous. The footage sat in the editing bay overnight. The next morning, a low-level editor almost deleted it. He thought it was just a bad take. But he paused, he rewound, and he realized he was holding the most explosive 4 seconds of television ever recorded. Why would a comedy show need so much censorship? The answer lies in one unedited frame. One frame that shows a face that wasn't acting. A face that belongs to someone who knew he was being watched. Not by the audience. By people in suits standing just off camera. People with the power to end careers. The blooper lasted only 4 seconds. But those 4 seconds contained a face that wasn't acting. That face belonged to the guest that night. A famous musician and outspoken activist. The Smothers brothers had booked him despite network warnings. During rehearsal, everything seemed fine. But when the live taping began, something felt wrong. The guest kept glancing off camera. His jokes landed flat. His hands trembled. Then came the sketch where he was supposed to pretend to argue with Tommy. Instead, he stopped pretending. The audience didn't know what the crew already suspected. The guest had received a death threat hours before airtime. Not a vague letter. A specific warning delivered to his hotel room. Network security was involved. Police were stationed outside the studio doors, yet the show went on. The producers believed the show must go on, no matter what. That decision nearly cost a man his life. This chapter investigates what really happened. The guest's name was not released for decades, but internal memos later confirmed he had been targeted by an extremist group angry about his anti-war music. The threat was credible enough that CBS assigned 2 plainclothes officers to stand near the stage. The guest knew. He asked to cancel. The network refused. They had already sold advertising time. They couldn't afford a last-minute replacement. So, he walked onto that stage with a smile plastered on his face. Every joke felt like a trap. Every laugh from the audience sounded like a countdown. The blooper captured the exact moment he broke character. Not for comedy, for survival. His eyes darted to the side of the stage. His left hand gripped a chair so hard the wood creaked. Tommy Smothers tried to feed him a punchline. The guest didn't hear it. He was listening for footsteps, for a voice, for anything that meant the threat was real. The cameras kept rolling. The director didn't notice. The editors missed it because they were too busy cutting political content. Think about a time you had to smile through fear. Now, imagine doing it live for 20 million people. That was his reality. And the blooper wasn't a mistake. It was a window into pure terror. The network erased the master tape the next morning. But one copy survived, and it reveals something even darker. The guest's final words on air were not the ones written in the script. What he actually said has been hidden for over 50 years. And the man who saved that tape is finally ready to talk. The Smothers brothers didn't know that CBS had planted a secret observer in their control room. His job was simple: flag any material that could anger sponsors or government officials. He reported directly to the network president, bypassing the show's producers. On the night of the blooper, he almost stopped the broadcast, but he hesitated, and that hesitation changed everything. Declassified memos tell the story. The observer, a former FBI agent named Harold, had full authority to cut the feed. He sat in a small booth above the studio floor, watching multiple monitors. His hand rested on a red button. One press, and the show would go to black. The network had given him this power after the Smothers brothers aired a sketch mocking the Attorney General. That sketch cost CBS 3 major sponsors. They weren't taking chances anymore. On the night of the blooper, Harold saw what the cameras captured. He saw the guest's trembling hands. He saw the off-camera glances. He saw the moment the guest whispered those 3 words. Harold knew immediately that this wasn't comedy. This was a man in genuine distress. But here's what made him hesitate. Cutting the feed would mean admitting that CBS had placed a spy in the control room. The network had never publicly acknowledged Harold's existence. If he pushed that button, the secret would come out. Reporters would ask questions. The Smothers brothers would use it as proof that the network was censoring them for political reasons. So Harold let it air. For seconds of unscripted terror slipped through. He watched the monitors as the guest finished the sketch, walked off stage, and collapsed against a wall. No one helped him. The crew was already setting up for the next segment. The show must go on. That decision cost Harold his job. He was fired the next morning, but it gave the world a piece of evidence that the Smothers brothers were right all along. The network wasn't just editing jokes. They were monitoring every breath, every glance, every moment of fear. If you want to understand how far power will go to silence truth, hit subscribe right now. Because what happened next proves that the blooper was just the beginning. The guest never returned to television. His career ended that night, but his final words on air were not the ones written in the script. Freeze the frame at 1 minute and 47 seconds. Look closely. What you'll see will change the way you watch every live broadcast from now on. Freeze the frame at 1 minute and 47 seconds. Look closely at the guest's left hand. It's not in his pocket as the script required. It's gripping the back of a chair so hard his knuckles are white. Now look at his eyes. They're not looking at Tommy Smothers. They're looking at someone standing just off camera. Someone the audience couldn't see. That person was Harold, the network observer. And the guest knew exactly who he was. This is the frame-by-frame breakdown of the unedited footage. For years, fans thought the blooper was just an awkward moment, a musician forgetting his lines, a comedy sketch falling flat. But when you slow it down, a different story emerges. The guest's mouth moves. He says 3 words, not part of any script, not part of any joke. Audio engineers later enhanced the track, filtering out the studio noise and the audience laughter. What they heard stopped them cold. The guest whispered, "They're watching me." Think about that. He wasn't acting. He wasn't improvising. He was telling the truth live on national television, hoping someone would understand. No one did. The audience laughed. The crew kept working. The cameras stayed on. That whisper lasted less than 2 seconds. But it was the most honest moment the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour ever broadcast. And the network edited it out of every rerun, every syndicated version, every DVD release. They scrubbed those 3 words from history. But the original broadcast tape was saved by a young intern named Daniel. He was 22 years old, working the overnight shift in the CBS archive. His job was to label and store the master tapes. When he saw the blooper, he didn't laugh. He rewound it 3 times. He saw the fear. He heard the whisper, and he knew this wasn't a blooper at all. It was evidence. Daniel hid the tape in a box labeled "Bloopers, Do Not Use." He marked it with a fake date and filed it in the back of a storage room. For 50 years, it sat there, forgotten, waiting. The blooper wasn't a mistake. It was a cry for help. And the network's response was not to help the guest. It was to bury the tape, to protect themselves, to make sure no one ever knew that their secret observer had been caught on camera. That tape now sits in a university archive donated by Daniel before he died. And it proves that the Smothers Brothers war with CBS wasn't about comedy. It was about control. The network didn't fear jokes. They feared truth. Have you ever seen something on TV that felt too real to be acting? That's because sometimes it is. The guest died in 1987. His family still won't discuss that night. But his daughter recently found a letter in his handwriting, dated the day after the broadcast. It begins with 4 words. I should have told them everything. The guest died in 1987. His family still won't discuss that night. But his daughter recently found a letter in his handwriting, dated the day after the broadcast. It begins with 4 words. I should have told them everything. That letter sat hidden in a shoebox for 36 years. Now it changes everything. After the Smothers Brothers were canceled in 1970, CBS destroyed hundreds of hours of footage. They claimed it was standard practice. But archivists know the truth. Networks only destroy what they fear. The blooper tape survived multiple attempts at erasure because of one young intern who refused to follow orders. Daniel, the 22-year-old archive worker, didn't just hide the tape. He made a copy. He stored it in a different building. He told no one. Not his family. Not his friends. He carried that secret for 50 years. In 2019, a documentary filmmaker named Rachel was researching the Smothers Brothers for a retrospective. She found Daniel still alive, living in a retirement home in Ohio. He was 81 years old, and he was finally ready to talk. He led her to a storage unit he had rented since 1971. Inside was a metal box. Inside that box was the original broadcast tape, plus Daniel's handwritten notes. He had documented everything. The date, the time, Harold's name, the guest's whispered words. Rachel tried to buy the tape from him. He refused to sell. He gave it to her for free. History isn't for sale, he said. The network found out. CBS sent lawyers. They offered Rachel a large sum of money for the tape and all copies. She refused. The network then threatened to sue. She released the clip online anyway. Millions of people saw it. Most still didn't understand. They commented about the awkward pause. They laughed at the guest's strange expression. They missed the fear. They missed the whisper. That's the tragedy of the Smothers Brothers. Their rebellion was real. Their enemies were powerful. And the blooper wasn't a mistake. It was the only truth television accidentally told. Think about the last time you laughed at something on screen without questioning what was really happening. That's exactly what the networks want. They want you distracted. They want you entertained. They don't want you to see the white knuckles or hear the whispered warnings. The full story, including the intern's testimony and the enhanced audio, is waiting in our next breakdown. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the truth they're still trying to hide. One letter remains unopened. One daughter holds the key. And somewhere in that shoebox, the guest's final confession waits to be heard. What did he wish he had told everyone? That answer will come. But not tonight. Tonight, the tape keeps rolling. And the camera never blinks.